You are 3 games out of the #1 seed in the East, have a contending team as presently constituted that's 3 games out despite all the injuries to some key players this year, a really good team, a really deep team, and yet you could possibly have the #1 pick. You might be enamored with Markelle Fultz, Alonzo Ball, whatever it is. So if you're Danny Ainge, you have got to take the long view here, and as we've been saying throughout this entire conversation, okay, Chicago, you're not ready now, we'll talk to you in the summer. That money's not burning a hole in our pocket. That pick's not going anywhere. It might be #1. You may change your mind. You may come down. Or if you're Indiana, okay, now, you know what? The price just went down for Paul George since you made us wait. Now you got to take the 2018 Nets pick instead of 2017. You deal from a position of strength, and you look at that roster and you say, you know what? Who knows how to playoff break? Just because we sit here and say the Celtics as presently constituted might not be good enough to unseat LeBron from the Eastern Conference throne doesn't mean that they have to look at their team that way. I love that they did not force a move and give up these long-term assets. They can contend now and for the next 10 years if these picks break right the next 2 years.
Yeah, they're in a nice little sweet spot, a bit of a different position.
They're the power players.
Yeah.
They're holding the chips. Everybody wants to deal with them.
Well, look, as long as nobody gets impatient in terms of, as you mentioned, like most of us project the Cavs in the finals. That doesn't mean it will happen.
Stranger things have happened.
That doesn't mean it's right. We know in the NBA the best team tends to win, and LeBron is certainly, still one of the best players in the world. So if they're okay with being very good or good in the short term, as long as they can strike it rich later down the road, I can certainly understand their thought process. But I guess here's what I'm sort of wondering, looking at their situation is, do you get to a point where you all of a sudden, maybe you're being a little too choosy? Okay, and I don't, again, I say this, there are a bunch of different reports about what they can get, and they can afford to,
That's
certainly
what I was about to say. They can afford to be
choosy.
choosy.
They can afford to, certainly sitting on that pick. I get that. But do you run the risk? And I say this sometimes with coaches who cross over into broadcasting, waiting on some perfect situation or scenario to get back into the league. Well, a lot of times I don't know what your idea of perfection is. I understand Danny Ainge's mentality. He wants the Celtics to compete for years.
And it's not like it was just the pick straight up. I mean, you're talking about gutting the core of your team, which you think can be special. He doesn't want to give up Jay Crowder, doesn't want to give up Avery Bradley. And I understand why. I think that team as presently constituted can get it done. If they don't, okay, you didn't, and yet you still have an opportunity to build for the long term.